Good afternoon. Thank you for joining me. You're watching the Maine Menu. I am your host, Michelle WAKEM. Joining me today are 3 volunteers from the American Cancer Society, and they are here to talk about a wonderful program that I didn't even know was out there, that many of you probably aren't aware that is available to people. The program is called Road to Recovery, and here to talk to us about that program is Kathy, who is the program's coordinator, and 2 volunteer drivers are Bud STIKER and JOAN BEAL. And without further ado, I'd like to pass it over to Kathy to talk to us a little bit about the program and what it is. Thank you for joining me, Kathy.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having us, all 3 of us. My job with the American Cancer Society, I'm a volunteer with the Road to Recovery program, and we provide transportation to patients for their cancer treatment, whether they have radiation 5 days a week or chemo every other week. We also transport them for doctor's appointments that are necessary and any other appointments that are related to their cancer treatment. So it's not just for radiation and chemo. If someone is going to be having radiation and maybe has cancer of the face, they may need dental extractions prior to treatment, and we'll transport them for that.
That's really wonderful.
Yeah, it is.
Great program.
It is a great program.
Now, I wasn't aware that this program was out there, and I think it's fabulous that it's provided to folks because you don't think that people going through cancer, that transportation is going to be something that they need. You think of all the other things that they're going through, and that's not something that you think about. How did that come about?
Well, Maine is a rather rural state, and a lot of our patients have a long way to drive for their treatment. Some of our patients who normally drive on a day-to-day basis, because of the medications they're receiving, they're not allowed to be operating a motor vehicle. So they may have a car sitting in their driveway, but not be allowed to be driving it. We have people that maybe just don't have a support system. Perhaps they've just recently moved to Maine and haven't hooked up with a church or their neighborhood group or whoever. So oftentimes we'll get calls to transport these people. We have people that live near public transportation. They're not allowed to use it because their immune system is very compromised during their treatment. So they're not allowed on a city bus with people coughing and sneezing. And so these are the kinds of people that we transport.
Okay. Now, I understand that this started many years ago with a particular woman. I believe her name is escaping me at the moment. But since then, it's continued on, and it's now celebrating its 30th birthday. Is that correct?
And it's all over the United States.
So it's not just here in Maine. It's all over.
It's all over.
That's really fascinating.
Yes.
That's really great. Now, if someone is needing transportation, how would they go about getting in touch with someone to coordinate that?
Well, the phone number is the 1-800-ACS-2345. That's a central clearinghouse for all the American Cancer Society. And once they call this number, they take down information, the names and date of birth and where they need to go, how often they need to go, and then it's directed to the proper office.
Okay.
And here in our area, our office is actually in Topsom, but we cover many counties.
So you would be the person that would receive that call, being the coordinator?
I would be the person. We actually have 4 people in our office. All of us are volunteers, and the ACS staff picks up at the end of the day. They listen to phone messages to make sure there's not any crisis going on that they need to address. So whichever coordinator is in the office gets the phone call, we fill out the paperwork, and then we start looking for rides. And we call people like Ted and Joan and say, we have a lady that needs transportation from to, and give them the dates, and they nicely say they'd be happy to help. That's what we like to hear anyway.
Yes. Well,
I'll tell you, we're happy to do that.
I find it amazing that you have volunteers such as Joan and Bud to offer their vehicles, because I understand that you provide your own
Right.
personal vehicle to take these patients to and from. How did you get involved in it, Joan?
Well, I'm a cancer survivor, and while I was receiving my treatments, I was in the waiting room waiting to go in for my radiation, and there's a big sign on the bulletin board that says, "We need drivers." Well, that stuck in my mind for, I was there for 6 weeks, 5 days a week, so it kind of burned into my brain. And I retired after my treatment was over and just fought with the idea of what I was going to do. And I kind of let it slide. And then probably Cancer Community Center or AARP had volunteer things listed where you could volunteer. And somehow that popped up in my mind again. So finally I called and went to a meeting in January and just decided that it was something I had to do. Mm-hmm. And I have been, it's been rewarding and so humbling. And it's just incredible that you hear these people's stories. And you become like some of these people that I drive, I feel like I'm part of their family because they don't have one around. But it's just a wonderful program, and anybody that has the opportunity should just go with it and give it a try because you won't be sorry.
It sounds wonderful, and I'm sure very fulfilling too in a lot of ways, not only for yourself but for the people that you're helping, because you're spending the time with this person and you don't only become a driver to this person, but like you said, the people that you're transporting might not have a family, so you're becoming a friend, you're becoming that ear for them.
Exactly.
So is there any one particular ride that stands out in your mind that...
Well, this one fellow is totally alone. And I don't know how old he is. He lives by himself, and he has interpreters that come and help him once in a while. But he's just an incredible person. And the last time I drove him, I'll be driving him next Wednesday, actually, and he told me the last time, he says, it's his second time through this whole treatment. Mm-hmm. And he says, I don't know if I can do this. I says, yes, you can. You can do it. So he's trying. I don't know if he's going to go through the whole thing. He's got a long road ahead of him. And then there was this woman. She has lung cancer. She's 80 years old. And she was just going to get radiation. She didn't want to go through the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And I was going to do her whole treatment. I was ready to do treatments for her every day for however long she needed it. And her daughter stepped in and arranged other rides for her so we didn't have to. And I felt really bad because this woman reminded me of my mother, just because she's 80 years old and facing this. And what do you do with that? It's so hard. I'm sure. So you just become attached to these people.
How can you not?
I know it.
Being a cancer survivor yourself, you empathize, you sympathize with these people because you know what they're going through, and your heart just reaches out for them. And I'm sure they respect and appreciate all that you're doing for them. I think what you do is fabulous.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. And Bud, thank you for joining us today.
It's great to be here.
I understand that you also are a volunteer driver for this wonderful program. How did you hear about it, and how long have you been doing it for?
I think about a year and a half. My youngest daughter had colorectal cancer living in Quincy, Massachusetts. And her husband could give her a ride a lot of the times, and occasionally a church member would give her a ride to chemo or radiation. But other times she was really stuck for a ride, and that's when she heard of, and we heard of, Road to Recovery. And when I was getting close to retirement, I thought, what are you going to do with your life? Yeah. Because all of us want to go through life thinking that we make a difference. And Road to Recovery makes a difference. So I got involved. And it has been extremely rewarding just listening to Joan talk about this gentleman, because I have also given him a ride. And the last time I gave him a ride, his tumor had shrunk and he was upbeat. And it was great to see him like that. And I'm sure we have shared other rides. And I agree with her in that you get attached. And when you are no longer giving a ride, A, you wonder, what happened?
Yeah.
Or B, I want to reattach. I want to get back with them somehow. You really do become part of their lives. Whether you are part of theirs is almost beside the point. You feel like you make a difference in their life. You're there on time. You open the door for them. They get into the car. You start talking. How are you? How are you doing? It is just an amazing, positive experience. And when Joan talks about making a difference, you do feel like not only do you make a difference, but you can go to bed at night and think to yourself, well, I've gotten a lot done today. I've helped somebody out that was in need. These are people who would much rather they, A, not have cancer, and B, need a ride. But you're there for them. And it's just incredibly rewarding. And I think about recruiting other people to drive. That'd be a cool thing to do, because I have a lot of friends who are now close to my age and sit around playing golf, and I'm trying to talk them out of that and say, play road to recovery.
At least a couple times a week, right?
At least once.
You might like it.
Yeah.
We'll go for a beer afterwards.
Right.
But life is good, and it makes you appreciate your own good health, your own good fortune.
And your mortality, too.
Oh,
really.
absolutely. And these people are inspiring. This one particular gentleman has been fighting for a long time, and he's inspiring to me. Couples that I have been driving for a while are inspiring to me. Yeah. And sometimes, Michelle, what you really want is to give this one particular person a ride more and more and more. But you lose them somehow. You can't make it, and Kathy gets somebody else. Yeah, I know you do.
My job.
They leave a message, and when you call back, it's too late. They've already found
they've
somebody
found
else.
somebody else.
So
Well, in a way, it's good because
I don't know about Joan, but what I have done is I've called and I say, when this guy
Needs a ride.
I want to be first on the
Yeah,
list.
yeah, I've
And
done
we
that.
make a note of that,
Yeah.
too.
I've done
We
that.
really
how special is that, though? I mean,
That's really
I
nice.
find it really special.
We get close to our drivers and our patients from the office. I mean, we know what drivers like and what drivers don't like. And Joan, for instance, I know which day she goes to church. I know she has a puppy, so she can't drive at certain times of the day. And you remember these things. And I know you would rather be emailed than called. But you have to get back really fast.
I know.
So, yeah, we get close to the drivers, and then after we've arranged rides for the patients, we call them back and say, Joan will be your driver on these particular days, and she'll call you the day before. If you don't hear from her, don't hesitate to call us. And that's when the patients tell us a lot about what's going on. Be sure to tell her that, I get very nervous if somebody's like, no, she won't be late. And we can make these guarantees because our drivers don't disappoint us.
I made a mistake in the time calculation when I had to pick somebody up, and I was late getting there.
I've never
And
done
I
that.
was a wreck. I was a wreck, and I felt so bad. I apologized 50 times. And so we got to the hospital for the treatment, and the nurse said to me, well, the next time, try and be on time. I said, oh, my God. I felt really
Just
bad.
what you
after
needed
that.
to hear.
Yeah, right, exactly. It makes you feel horrible. I mean, I missed it by 10 minutes, and that's a long time.
It took me a long time to realize that if the patient had an appointment at 9:45, I did not put 9:45 down on my calendar, because if I did that, I was going to pick them up at 9:45.
Exactly.
Right.
So now you put it half an hour ahead.
And it's important, too, and I'm sure Kathy will reiterate this, you call them the day before.
Yeah.
You introduce yourself, and I'll say I'll be there, this is what I drive, I'll be out in front, is there something special I should know about where you live, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So you pull that out of them, and it's all good.
That's great.
It is, it's cool.
I've
It's a
never
cool
had-
gig.
It
I've
really
never had
is.
a bad experience. I've never had a bad experience. Everybody that I've ever picked up, I've picked up husbands and wives, and the closeness of those two people.
Oh, yeah.
It's incredible.
I will tell you, watching them walk in hand, it's worth a photograph.
It is.
I mean, it's terrific stuff.
Yeah.
Picture's worth 1,000 words, as they
I
say.
get all
Yeah.
teary. Here,
Aw.
my relatives are going to laugh at me because I
Oh,
do
no.
this.
I do too.
I do too,
hug?
so that's okay. Group hug.
I'm awful.
Well, Kathy, being the coordinator for this program, you say you match drivers to the patient. Now, how, when you say match to driver, do you go by what
Location
exactly? Okay.
first of all. If we have a patient in Portland, we obviously start with Portland drivers, not someone from Hancock County. And then we have to match the driver's availability. We're a very pen and paper office still. We have a thing with Joan's name on it and a time frame that she can drive, days of the week that she can drive. And so we just try to match the patients with the drivers, basically based on time, first of all.
Okay. And you have how many drivers total?
Oh, probably right now in Cumberland about 20.
Okay.
Oh, that's not a lot.
No, it's not a lot. We could use twice that many, and
Yeah.
then we don't have to have the same people driving over and over.
I feel bad when I have to say no.
I do too.
I do.
I do
I
too.
feel so
I feel
bad.
really bad when you say no.
Yeah, I feel bad when I have to say no. Because I have days that I can schedule and other days that I can't. And they'll call just by chance because I have a soft heart. Maybe I'll say yes to this one. You know, like Wednesday, I have to pick this fellow up at 9:45, and I'm usually in church. So I'm going to skip church, and I know the service that I'm doing will plentifully take care of what my needs are. So it's just a thrill
We
to
try
drive
not
these
to
people.
infringe on things when we know, I mean, we do know that she has this church thing. And so obviously whoever had called you must have been pretty desperate because we know that the church is important to Joan.
Yeah.
What Kathy doesn't know is my tennis schedule.
Tell us.
Because I won't tell them my tennis schedule. Because if they knew that I played tennis on Mondays and Thursdays and Friday mornings, they
At
might
what
not
time?
call me.
At
Oh,
what
no,
time?
I'm not going to tell you. They might not call me, so I don't tell them my tennis schedule because I've blown off tennis to do this.
Yeah, well, I've done the same thing, but
Yeah.
you know, you're right. I probably shouldn't tell them when
Don't do that. There are priorities.
there are.
So being drivers for these folks, what's the feedback that you get from them? What's the feeling that you feel from them when you're driving or after? How are they?
Well, first of all, they tell you 15 times on a ride how appreciative they are. And that they know that they have to get to their treatments, and having someone that they can count on to take them to their treatments means a lot. I mean, just that one sentence alone gives you enough to make you realize, holy smokes, there should be more people doing this. You know, you get more from them than you give them.
Amen.
Really.
Amen.
I mean, you do. You get more than you give.
I believe that.
I mean, it's just, I mean, they're stuck in a position where they have to have this treatment. And I'm sure they wouldn't, if they didn't have to, they wouldn't be asking for a ride.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes them feel, I'm sure, like they're begging. But on the other hand, Bud and I have both been through this, so we know how important it is to get to that treatment. And luckily, if there's a snow day or something's going on, they tack their treatment on to the end of it. It's not like they miss it forever. They just tack it on at the end. So, you know, it makes you feel good to know that you're somehow helping these people out. I mean, it's gratifying as the devil. I mean, that's all I can say.
And you use your own personal vehicles to do
Sure.
this,
Yeah.
and gas and all that sort of
All
thing.
that sort of thing, right. And it, you know,
incredible.
it doesn't bother me a bit.
That's amazing.
Me neither.
It doesn't mean a thing.
I was thinking about, in the late 80s, my first wife died of breast cancer, and I was able to give her a ride 95% of the time. And one of my sons would give her a ride the other percent of the time. I never heard of Road to Recovery. And not that I would have used it, could have used it, but I never even heard of it. Yeah. So I think it's a great service that you're doing to get this word out. And I know all of us appreciate it a lot. But I wish there was some other way we could get the word out to more and more people, because Kathy's right, we need twice the number of drivers that we have. Probably could use a few more volunteers in Thompson.
We could. We actually would like someone in the office all 5 days of the week instead of 4. It would take the stress off the paid employees.
Sure.
Plus the patients.
And it's nice to have an extra person to fill in when the regular volunteers are on vacation or sick leave. Yeah, you can never have too many volunteers. Instead of having someone there 4 hours a day, we could have someone there 6 or 7 hours a day.
Right. Well, I hope with coming onto the show today will help to spread the word for you and
Well,
you're
I
able
think
to...
just the thought of
certainly.
you being able to volunteer a couple of hours a week, Melissa, I think
Knowing that you work full-time, we have many full-time employees.
Yeah?
We have a nurse that volunteers. She works night shift, and she'll drive early morning people to treatment.
Oh, I didn't know
Maybe
that. That's
3 or
great.
4
That's
times a month.
incredible.
That's
So she gets
wonderful.
off work, she does her volunteer driving, and then she goes home and goes to bed.
Wow.
We have 2 ladies I know of that work 3 to 11 shift, and they will drive anywhere from 10 to 2 during the day.
Wow.
So when you
I thought-
schedule someone that needs transportation, now what's the time frame on that for when, from the time you take, or is it?
We can
Sometimes
have
it's the day
visits.
before.
I'll give you a good
Sometimes-
example before Kathy jumps in. I had a drive this week where I took a couple to Maine Medical Center on Route 1 in Scarborough. Dropped them off because there was 5 hours of chemotherapy, and then picked them up later in the day. So I wasn't there all that time.
Okay.
I was doing something else and got back. But
It's a tennis day.
and other times you just drop them off at radiation, you wait 15, 20 minutes, and you take
Bring
them
'em
home.
home.
So it varies a
It
great
varies,
deal.
okay.
And you have to be flexible.
And we have times where perhaps he would take a person in the
Yep.
morning and leave them, and we'll have another driver go back 5 hours later to pick them up.
Oh, okay.
So we're always getting very creative with our rides. If a person, for instance, needs to go into Boston for treatment, we may have a driver pick them up at their home and take them to the Amtrak station. And then when they come back at the end of their treatment, another driver will pick them up at the train station and take them home.
Well, that's pretty
So-
convenient.
Yeah,
So
I
if
had-
you're
I-
available at 7 p.m., we can use you.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Hint, hint.
Yeah.
Kathy, it's okay.
Yeah. But we do get very creative.
Yeah,
very
they do.
creative.
They do a really good job.
We had a radiation center that was closed this summer up north. Bath Radiation was closed for a period of time, so our people had to come down to Scarborough. And we were trying to arrange carpooling, 2 people per car. They actually had a transportation bus that would take people from Mid-Coast Hospital. And at Scarborough Center arranged all their radiation back to back.
So they could.
So they
make it
could do
easy.
one time. So,
I think one way American Cancer Society could get involved in doing this is they need to let the oncologists know. Somehow, the patients have to find out right then when they realize they've got to have their treatments. And to me, that starts with the oncology department. So if the oncology doctor could let them know, make sure that they are available.
well, that's where the nurse navigators, they now have nurse navigators at all the treatment centers, and they are the ones that are getting the word out to the patient service center. They're the ones that are saying, oh, Joan's going to be starting 6 weeks of daily treatment. What are you going to do for transportation? If she said, geez, my daughter lives out of town and my son works full time, I really don't know. That's when the nurse navigators are getting involved and saying, here's the number to call. Or they actually will call from the treatment center and put you on the phone with the patient service center and
Oh, so that's
get the ball
wonderful.
rolling
Really
right
good.
from. And we get the information from the patient service center really the next day from when it's called in. I don't think we've ever come in the morning, and there's usually several messages from patient service center. We have a new referral.
How soon would someone need to call to have something scheduled?
Well, we're now asking for a 4-day heads up.
Okay.
Simply because we were getting a lot of requests like a day before. It's really, really difficult because our drivers are booked sometimes days ahead. You know, I'll look at their calendar and say, well, they're driving someone every day this week. So we ask for 4 days. Most of the time when you're diagnosed and they get a treatment plan together, it doesn't start the next day.
No.
So if 4 days is not a long time to ask.
Because they plan out, like when they did it with me, I had my calendar for when I was going to go, and it's usually the same time every day. Once they get you going, they'll schedule it for the same time so that person can plan, and then people like Kathy can plan on that too.
That's
So
helpful, yes.
it works out very well that
And
way.
sometimes we'll fill the whole person's 6-week schedule. We may have it filled within 4 days, and we can call them and say, now here, every Tuesday, Joan will be driving you. Every Monday, Michelle has volunteered. And so the patients really get a good peace of mind when they get that phone call saying, next week is covered every day. It'll be Bud, it'll be you, it'll be me, and yeah, they really get it's good for them not to have to worry.
Exactly, one less
about
thing
how
to
they're going to get
stress
there.
about. They already have so much on their minds already, you know, so to be able to take that one thing away is really great.
Worrying about getting medication and, you know, sometimes they're worried about their children. They get so concerned about what are my kids going to do? And when they should be concentrating on themselves, they're worried about others.
One of the things that just hit me when you were talking about that, I drove a couple recently, and from my own experience of having a wife go through this, I realized that so much attention was being paid to Debbie, and no one was paying any attention to me. And after a while, you feel bad. And I suppose it sounds selfish, but it's a human reaction. Not that she doesn't deserve all the attention, but I'm hurting too. So I was driving this couple, and the gentleman was in the front seat, and I looked at the woman in the back seat, and I said, how are you taking care of yourself? And she told me about a great support group of men and women whose husbands, wives were going through this. So I think it's important for all of us to be aware, and I think we all are, because certainly Joan has gone through this, and I've gone through it. We're all aware that it isn't just the cancer patient who is suffering.
It's the supporting person sitting there.
That's right.
Yeah,
so it just lends or adds another element to what I think we bring to the table, which is a lot. And you had asked about how do they show their appreciation. I reiterate what Joan said. They're thanking us all the way through. I mean, you can tell how much it means to them. And someone will reach over and touch you.
Oh yeah, they do that. I mean, and you can tell it's genuine. It's not anything that they're thinking of, well, you know, I need to say thank you, but that's not it.
Not even
That's
close.
not it. That's not it at all. They really are thankful and appreciative of what you're doing for them.
Oh, I'm sure.
And you know, having gone through it, and Bud too now with his wife, so we know how important it is. We know how important it is to feel that you know you're going to get to your treatment on time, and you don't have to worry about that kind of thing. So I encourage anybody who knows someone who has cancer and that needs treatment, that make sure that they have a ride. That's the best thing you can do for anybody that you know.
Most definitely.
Yeah, it's interesting because, again, from my own experience and from my son-in-law's experience with our daughter, people will say, is there anything I can do? Yeah. Well, it's always nice to hear. But if they knew specifically, can I babysit every afternoon between 3 and 6? Or can I give your wife a ride? Here's when I'm available. Oh my gosh, that would be wonderful. Be specific, and being specific means, to me anyway, how can I help you with driving your wife, your mother, your daughter to the hospital or for chemo, radiation, whatever.
Right.
Simple.
It is so simple. That's it. It's so simple.
Yep.
It's so easy. And, you know, some days, some weeks, because of my limitations of going, I don't hear from Kathy or Nancy or Patty, and I feel so terrible. I'm thinking to myself, now, I should be doing this more often, you know, but when I do it, unbelievable.
We have Joan, a coordinator that works on Wednesday, and Terry lives up north quite a ways, and he's also one of our drivers.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes he'll say, well, I can drive, but I can't be in the office at the same time. So we have to make these big executive decisions. Where is he most needed?
Wanted, yeah.
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 So a lot of times too, the person that drives the patient isn't always necessarily the same person that's going to be picking them up. So you're pretty flexible as far as drivers being able to, one may be able to bring them in the morning, but then after
But
the
it's all
appointment is done.
coordinated
Right.
through the office. So the patient knows that Bud will bring them there, and she will pick them up at the end of their treatment.
I've done that before,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we all have.
Yeah, and we've had funny stories when she may never have met this person that she's picking up at 3 p.m. And so we're saying, like, what kind of a car do you drive? What will you be wearing? How will they find you?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we've had
exactly.
some neat stories where.
Speaking of stories, I'd love to hear some from you, being that you've experienced, you know, driving these patients to and from. Are any stories that, I know you mentioned one earlier. How about Bud for you? Any stories that stand out in your mind that really inspire you or motivates you?
It is almost universal in my mind. All of the people that I've driven have been inspiring to me. And I think some of the people that I've had the opportunity and the pleasure to drive more than once, 3, 4, 5 times, that's when I think you really get into their hearts and their souls, and you feel a great attachment.
Yeah.
And you can start talking about other things other than cancer. This one gentleman was in a business that I understood, and he knew I understood it. So we talked about it, and we laughed about it, and we told lies about it. It was just great. Those are the kind of relationships. So when you ask about stories, it's relationship stories. It's,
Yeah, it is.
It's,
It is.
it is if you were having a beer with a guy, or you were sitting down with a woman on a park bench looking at a beautiful, and just talking.
So a sense of bonding in a way,
Oh, very
because you're
much so.
sharing,
Oh, yeah.
you're sharing
They
that
get to
moment.
the point where you know, they're relying on you, and you know, this one fellow loves chocolate, and he tells you he loves chocolate, and he laughs, you know, like he's got his fingers in the cookie jar that
Is
he's
this the man with the Pittsburgh Pirates?
Yes.
So do you bring them chocolate?
No, I have not done that. I have not done.
Neither have
I think you should have not done that. But he's a chocolate addict. He really is. I felt bad last summer. If he's still around needing a ride next summer, he lives on the 7th floor of this building, and he had no fan, no air conditioning, nothing. And so he's roasting up there, and I feel so bad. I almost brought him a fan. I should have. I felt really bad.
I keep threatening to buy him a Boston Red Sox cap.
There you go. That's a good idea, too.
Absolutely. That's how attached you get to these people. They become, if not your friends, then certainly people that you you know and understand, and they know that you're there to help them,
Yeah.
that you're not asking anything of them, you're not judging anything. It is just, you know, you walk away at the end of the day, honest to God, and you feel like you've really made a difference.
Yeah, it does.
And in truth, you have.
Do you know, a lot of times when patients would call the office and they want to know how the program works, and of course you start with your 4-day notice, and we need to know where you're going, and we need to know, and I give them all this, and I said, all our drivers are volunteers. We're not guaranteeing a ride for every appointment you have, but we certainly did try. And I said, our volunteers get nothing out of this. They get no compensation
Oh, yes,
for
we
gas.
do.
They get
Oh, yes,
no.
we do.
And then you listen to Bud and Joan, and they get more
We get
out
a
of
lot
it
more than
a
most-
tank full of
exactly.
gas, don't you?
I don't necessarily
But
believe in a life after death, but if there was a life after death, Pete would say, "Oh, you guys have done a hell of a job."
You know, we have a lot of patients, well, actually, we do have several patients that are not English speakers.
Yes. Yep.
And you talk about someone leaning over and patting you on the shoulder and what a good feeling it is. I had a driver phone one day to say that this one lady who does not speak English leaned over and hugged her, and she said, I just burst into tears.
Oh, yeah, you can't.
And sometimes words aren't even needed.
Yeah,
That's
you
exactly
know,
right.
You know, just
They're
a
not.
little gesture is
It's
all
just,
it needs. And
I mean,
And you think how brave these people must be to be in a different country, not knowing the language, and be diagnosed with this dreadful disease and have to go through treatment. They do have interpreters at the hospital, but it still must be terribly frightening.
Oh, I'm sure.
What
And
happens.
what I've learned, because I've done a lot of international travel, and if I know I'm going to pick up somebody from Somalia, I'll ask, what is a greeting? What is good morning?
oh, see, you're good. You're good. I haven't got there yet.
So when the person comes out the door, I will be able to say good morning, whether it's in Hungarian, Jó reggelt.
Oh, yeah, good for you.
I'm sure that often brings out a smile on the
It does.
person.
Yeah.
It breaks a lot of ice. It really does.
I bet it does. That's a good thought. I'm
It is
gonna
a very
have to
good
see if I
thought.
can-
That's
You
what I'm
can
here for,
Google that.
pal.
Yeah. Help each other out, right?
That's right.
So I'm sure talking to these folks, they're going through such a tragic thing that they're going through and dealing with. Their outlook on life must be phenomenal, because usually these folks they're humbled. They realize how precious life is, and not to take things for granted. Do you feel all these folks are really grounded, or
Some of them are scared to death. Some of them know that this is all for naught, because at some point, if they're terminal, it's going to end sometime, along with their life. But this one woman, she's stage 4 permanent. You know, she goes to treatments all the time, and she's got the biggest heart, she's got a wonderful disposition. You know, and she talks and laughs about her former life, what she used to do. She lived, different places, and she tells these stories. And here she is, terminally ill, knowing what the end result has become, but it doesn't bother her a bit.
And
But
we
that's-
goes on with
love
her
to
day.
hear their stories
They
and
go-
what
She
they've
goes on
done
with her
for a
day,
living.
and thank you for the ride. You don't know how much I appreciate. I mean, it does. It makes you want to cry. That's all there is.
It gives me goosebumps.
It gives you
It
goosebumps
really
thinking
does.
about those kinds of people, because that's all they have. That's all they can hold on to.
Right.
And that conversation they're going to have with you in the car while you're taking them means so much to them, because a lot of them are so alone.
It's sad
I
to
don't know
think.
what to
It's
tell ya.
sad to think that they go through something like this alone. So I really commend what you really do for these people, and I hope that you, with this program and putting the word out there, I really hope that you find many, many, many volunteers to contribute to this program, because it's
And we hope we find
fabulous.
many too.
Yeah, we do.
But we do, our program is not just here in Cumberland and York County. The Topsom office itself covers all the way up to Hancock, Waldo, Lincoln County.
Wow.
I mean, we find rides from people from Damascotta that have to come all the way to Scarborough, to the Cancer Treatment Center. We'll have people from Boothbay Harbor that need to go into Lewiston. So we do cover a very large area, Androscoggin County and Sagadahoc also.
Wow. And you have volunteers close to these.
We
areas.
do, but we have several drivers in Hancock County that for a while were not being called. There just was no need for them, which it happens. You go in cycles where maybe in Cumberland County you're overwhelmed and Hancock is quiet, and then Hancock needs all the drivers they can get. We have drivers in Hancock County that personally called the office and said, I will drive to Portland and take
Wow.
someone to Scarborough Center because I haven't been used lately. And
Wow.
I mean, to think that someone, that's
Yeah, that's great.
55 miles
That's
one
big.
way.
That's
and
big.
these people are
See,
willing
that
to
goes
drive.
to show you the importance that it has become in our lives to be able to help these people out. I mean, you're willing to do it. You are. You're
But
just
it's not all sweetness and light. I remember as we were talking, There was a man who needed to be picked up in Sanford at 7 o'clock in the morning for like a 7:30 appointment in Sanford. I live in Yarmouth. It's a schlep down to Sanford.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
it's almost
is.
an hour.
And I'm halfway there and I'm thinking, what the heck am I doing this for? Until I picked him up. And then you know.
You're reminded.
Yeah.
Of this, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, there's just nothing to say.
Well, let's tell a joke or something.
So-
I'm too emotional.
A few more Sanford drivers would help.
Yeah, Sanford drivers. Okay, Sanford, we need you. No, we've spent a lot of time telling our stories, and if people don't realize how important this program is, and if these stories that we're telling don't hit a heart
Yeah.
chord, you know, I don't know what will. I mean, we're practically crying here. I
I
don't know
know.
what else.
Well,
got me
maybe
teary-eyed a
men
few
don't
times too.
Men
All
don't
right,
cry.
men
Should
don't
have had a
cry.
box of tissues on the table, but
Psychotherapy session right
yes.
here.
But it's a good thing. It's a good happy tear.
It is.
You know, it's like watching a movie with a happy ending and you cry. You know, it's like one of those feelings. You're helping someone. You're making a difference in someone's life. And like you said, I think everybody in this world would like to make a difference in somebody's life in one way or in another.
And it's a privilege
So,
to do that. with this,
Absolutely.
And it's
opportunity.
and we're very fortunate that we have the time to donate. One of our patients one day said, "Do you have anyone younger that can pick me up?" And I said, "Well, I need to tell you, most of our drivers are older and they're retired, and that's why they have time to be doing this. If they're young, they're out gainfully employed." And they went, "Oh, I never really thought of it that way. I just thought all you had were older drivers."
Well, mostly that is what we
But it
have.
was a young person, and they were looking for a young driver, which I thought was interesting.
That is very interesting.
Yeah.
Have you had any other strange requests?
We do
from
have some
patients?
young drivers, though. We really do, whose work schedules are more flexible. Maybe they work in Portland and they're self-employed. We do have a young man that's the case, and he's wonderful to pick someone up in Cumberland or anywhere in Portland and take them for treatment, and then have the patient call me at the office when they're done, and I'll drive down and bring them back home. So.
Great. So, do you find that patients have bizarre requests at all, or as far as who's
No.
coming to pick them up, or they're just they're pretty open?
No, they
to-
really don't, and very no. I think they're just so gracious about taking whoever's available, and they love to hear about our driver stories. And I don't just mean health history, but you know, I had a driver once, and she had 11 grandchildren and 11 dogs, and I'll say, "Oh, that must be so and so," but they love hearing the drivers' personal family stories. I think it just kind of grounds them
Well, yeah,
in
plus
normalcy.
it makes them
Absolutely.
feel like they've got a connection there.
Yeah,
don't
it's
they?
not a sick.
Yeah.
It's not a sick thing. It's
Right.
something healthy and fun and natural. So
And also a way to get to meet other people
Yeah.
and
Sure.
interact. And
we had a driver for a while that was driving a gentleman who, on their first ride together, they discovered they both had a love of opera, and
That was it.
they absolutely clicked. Absolutely. And she drove him 3 times a week forever.
Aw.
So, yeah.
That's
You
great.
strike up friendships. You find sometimes the friendships go past the treatment. When the treatment is over, the patients and the drivers keep
That's
in touch.
really nice. Yeah,
So that's always fun to hear, too.
most definitely.
And we don't get a lot of gifts per se, but I've had one person, a couple actually, bake some English muffins for me.
Oh.
Wow, good for you.
I bet those were the best English muffins
I'm
ever.
bragging a little bit here.
Would you buy him a candy bar? No. Chocolate?
I have to think of that chocolate thing. That's not right now, because it's not a good time for him, but that's a good idea, buying chocolate.
Buying chocolate. Now, when you are driving, the facilities that you're driving the patients to, I'm sure they vary, you know, depending on where they're located. Where they're being dropped off for the treatments, is information about your program that you offer, is it part of their
Yes.
facility, so they know to call you, or like local hospitals or clinics, they know
Yes.
to...
All the social workers especially.
Okay.
And when you're diagnosed with cancer, you're almost always hooked up with a social worker.
Okay.
You may go in for surgery at a hospital and get your diagnosis. A social worker sees you, and they're really good about referring people.
Oh, good. Okay.
They're wonderful about
So
it.
they help to make the connection between you and the patient.
Yes,
to-
and the nurse navigators are wonderful.
Fabulous. Good.
Get the word out.
In
Excellent.
the situation that we talked about where I would drop off a person at 9:45 and then pick them up 5 hours later, I always give them my cell phone in case the person gets out early or is going to be delayed. They can call and let me know what's going on. I think that kind of communication is very important too.
Oh,
It is.
Most of our
definitely.
drivers either give their cell phone numbers to the patient
Yep.
or to the nurse who's
Yeah,
doing the
that's
treatment.
that's what I've done a lot of times.
And
Because
say
if
if
they're
you-
going to be an hour or 2 or 3 or 4, like one next week is just like a 4-hour trip for him. So, you know, I drop him off and I'll pick him up afterwards. Yeah, and it worked. I mean, you're blocking off that amount of time, and it's
Yeah.
fine. I mean, it's the way it is.
Be sure to say hello to him for me.
I
you?
will.
It's great that more than one driver gets to, make the connection with
Yep.
with the other patients as well.
Yeah.
So
He
it-
prefers me, frankly.
Did he tell you that?
After I gave him the chocolate.
that's because he
Yeah.
he gave him
It's a
chocolate.
man
Yeah,
thing, right.
that's it. Bribery for chocolate. Is there anything else you'd like to add about your program?
Well, other than begging for more drivers, we can never have too many drivers. If anyone is willing to work in the Topsom office, that's always something. We invite people to come and shadow us, see what we do, and if it's something they may be interested in. We service the most people we can. We do the best we can.
You're doing a great job.
We certainly do try. And we love to hear follow-up stories from our patients. We have patients that will call the office and just say, oh, I thought today was the day you were there. I just want you to know that I'm done my treatment and thank you. So we get feedback from patients. We get feedback from drivers. We love the drivers' feedbacks, too. Some of the things that, because I don't physically see the patients, sometimes Joan will call or our driver will call and say, do you know this lady has this little quirky thing, or did you know that she had oxygen and she has this great big massive tank? And I went, no, no. So, you make sure that the nurse and the nurse navigator can hook them up with a little portable oxygen and
Yeah.
try to make things easier that way.
Right. How about Joan, for you? Anything you'd like to add?
Well, I think we've had plenty to say, but
Yes, I think so.
But I'm going to look right at the camera and tell everybody, please, if you have half a day, if you have 2 hours where you could drive someone, you will not be sorry that you've committed that time. And by all means, call that 800 number, that American Cancer Society, and make sure that you put your name on the list to be a driver. You won't regret it. Thank you very much.
I can reiterate that. Thank you very much, Joe. It's as simple as that.
Right.
She said it all. She really did.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you all so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure having you on the show, and I've really enjoyed learning about the program. I hope you
Thank you.
are able to obtain many, many volunteers.
Great. Thanks for
Thank
your
you
time.
so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Thanks very
Appreciate
much.
it.
Great
Welcome.
being here.
Thank you. And for everyone at home watching, thank you so much. I hope that you learned a lot from the show and about the road to recovery. And if you know anyone out there who has cancer and is in need of some help, whether it be a family member, I mean, we're all connected or we're all touched by cancer in some way, please call the number on the screen, get some help for this person. It'll make it so much easier. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.